Good morning. Today, we'll be discussing the possible risk for real estate in 2024. Stay tuned. Thank you very much for listening. Today, we will be discussing the possible risk that will challenge the real estate industry in the Philippines this 2024. Now, the first one of them is this is my opinion. The first one is the possible uptick in inflation again, because there are some analysts that say that the price of rice, the staple food of the Filipinos, will rise in the first quarter and even up to the second quarter. Why? Because of the effects of El Nino in the entire region, the Southeast Asian region, and you have Southeast Asian countries, namely Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, who are exporters of rice. And as you know, the Philippines is the major or the number one importer of rice in the entire world. These countries who are rice producers would not want to immediately export their rice because they don't want to be affected by El Nino if ever the rice production dips. So the analysts say that it will be a challenge for the Philippines to come up with a supply that would meet the demand of the Filipinos. Alam mo naman ang Filipino, only rice, di ba? Kaya baka mahirapan po tayo. So, why will it be a challenge for the real estate industry? Because any uptick in inflation affects the interest rate. Now, in the Philippines, if you know, last month there was a downward trend in the inflation rate, and there is a talk of possibility that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas will be lowering the interest rate sometime in the second half of this year. Okay? Now, if that is the case, and we have a lack of supply of rice, then because of supply and demand, the prices of rice will go up, and therefore it might affect the inflation rate in the Philippines. And when inflation rate goes up, then the possibility of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or the BSP to lower the interest rate by the second half will be delayed further. And what does that mean to the real estate industry? Then the interest rate for loans to developers and to homeowners will be still high, and therefore it will rather depress demand. Okay, the demand for housing units, or the demand or the funding of the development projects. Okay, so there will be a delay, and therefore if there's a delay, then we will have a situation where everything will be a wait and see attitude again. So that may be a challenge to the real estate industry per se. Now, aside from that, aside from the possible uptick in inflation rate, we also have several geopolitical risks that is worrisome. And as you know, when there's geopolitical risk, it affects our economy one way or another, directly or indirectly. It affects us. So number one geopolitical risk is the Israeli and Hamas conflict. Okay, if it worsens and it turns into a regional war, then that would affect oil prices. And if it affects oil prices, then there is an uptick also in the oil products that is being imported in the Philippines, because we are net importers of oil products, and therefore that might also affect inflation. Okay, number two, we have the Ukraine and Russian conflict. So I think it's going to 2 years, and this as you know, affected the supply chain in the world, and therefore it also affected the supply and demand of economic goods. And there was a slowdown in exports of other related products in different countries. It affects the Philippines because when there's a disruption of the supply chain, goods do not move freely, and therefore it may or it depresses our economic activities in the Philippines, and it affects our economic performance. And sadly, it might lead into a depressed demand for real estate in the country. Now, the third conflict that might and hopefully it does not lead into a full-blown conflict would be the Taiwan and China crisis. Okay, so I just heard the news that the Taiwanese election has been concluded, and the winners of that election, the president of Taiwan now, is disliked by the Chinese Communist Party, and therefore hopefully there won't be any saber rattling by China that would create uncertainty in the region. Okay, and if that happens, then it also affects our economic activity here in the Philippines, because as you know, we are interconnected, especially in the ASEAN region, where the biggest trading partner of ASEAN countries is China. Okay, and we also have the unemployment rate, which was lower in November 2023. It was notched at 3.6%, with underemployment having been clocked at 11.7%. Now, this one, they say that it's an improvement because there are a lot of jobs that are created in the country. But the challenge here is, are we creating enough jobs in the Philippines? Quality jobs where the people can have quality wages, or living wages, which would now translate into demand for real estate. Okay, so if we have a unemployment that is going down, but the jobs that are being created is not those is not quality jobs that can sustain a family, wherein they would think of purchasing real property because they could have savings already, etc., etc. Now that would be a challenge. Okay, so I hope the government continues its efforts to create meaningful and quality jobs in the Philippines, especially with a lot of retooling, and so that these employees will be better equipped in the future, so that they could have a lot of savings. And like I said, if there are a lot of savings, then the desire to purchase real estate may be there. Okay, so hindi lang naman kasi lahat ng Pilipino ay kayang bumili ng real estate at this time. Okay, so those are the several challenges that I see in 2024. And there's one final challenge that I see also, which is a good news and a bad news. Okay, the good news is that the real estate values in the Philippines continue to rise. Now, there are two things that affects the increase in the values of real estate in the country. Number one is the mandate of the local government code to the LGUs, telling them to update the real property values in their jurisdiction, so that they could collect more taxes. Okay, now because of that mandate, there's been a constant increase of real estate values in the Philippines. Number two also is the train law mandates also that there should be a constant upgrading or updating of the BIR zonal values every 3 years. And that has also contributed to the increase of value of real estate in the entire country. Now, that is the good news. That's the good news for real estate owners. Okay. Now, the bad news there is that it creates, it may lead into a affordability crisis in the Philippines, wherein the higher the land that is desired to be purchased by real estate developers, the higher the end product would be because of the high land values. Okay, so if that happens, then less and less Filipinos may purchase property that is within their budget. Okay, so ang mangyayari, baka hindi nila abot kaya. Now, the developers now can only tweak the values of their product after the fact, when they have made the plans. Okay, now despite making their plans or like your feasibility studies, you could always see that the major component of the price of the final product, the house and lot or the condominium units, is based on the land values, okay, and the construction cost. Okay, so that may be a challenge in 2024 as well, because there have been local government units that have finished their revisions, their updating of their real estate property values. Now, we hope that these challenges will be mitigated by policies of government or by a strong economy and a strong demand for real estate. Okay, so as real estate service practitioners, we should always keep in mind these factors, so that when we market, we find the proper client to market our properties. And if we are true professionals, then this type of information will rather help us in our pursuit to sell property and to service our clients with the best information that we can give them. All right, so this is all for now, and I hope I would see you in the next video.